We are continuously witnessing a number of conflicting reports in the local and international press about where Greece's financial crisis stands. On the one hand, we have investors warning that Greece must now seek financial aid from the European Union and the International Monetary Fund in order to rescue its finances, as they believe the current strategy of borrowing its way out of trouble is unfeasible because of record-high interest rates. On the other hand, however, we have France and Italy saying that Eurozone authorities stand ready to help debt-stricken Greece whenever necessary. We have Germany saying that it saw no reason to doubt that Greece could refinance its debts. And we also have the head of the European Central Bank, Jean-Claude Trichet, saying that default is not an issue for Greece. To help put things into perspective, we have financial analyst Max Kaiser joining us on the line. Mr. Kaiser, thank you for joining us.
Sure, Ellen.
What is going on?
Well, going back to what I've been saying for the past few weeks, pretty much what I expected would happen has happened. In other words, a few weeks ago, when the IMF was brought into the equation, they were brought in as a junior partner. And then now, because the bond market is collapsing in Greece, people are going to defer to the IMF to run the whole bailout so-called package. And this is what I feared would happen. It looks like it definitely is happening, and it's not something that the Greek people would want because the IMF is not going to be representing them. The IMF doesn't represent them. The Greek government is supposed to represent the Greek people, and yet the Greek government, as I feared, is simply going to defer to the IMF, and that they've shirked their responsibility as representatives of the people.
Now, you have said effectively that the Greek economy is in the clutches of the speculators, and you've also said that the IMF is already in Greece. The only thing left now is the paperwork. Why is the European Union allowing IMF intervention?
Well, it's a big game that's played between Germany, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, and the bankers on Wall Street and the bankers in the City of London. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank and the banks on Wall Street never liked the idea of a European Central Bank and the euro because it created a competitive world reserve currency to the dollar. So they're using Greece, really, to put it in poetic terms, really as the Achilles heel, as a way for the IMF and the Federal Reserve Bank and the Wall Street bankers to destabilize the European Central Bank, to discredit Trichet, and to take more of a controlling interest in what happens with the euro, because the banks on Wall Street and the IMF do not want an independent euro competing with the dollar for world reserve currency status. And they're using the Greek collapse, they manufactured, by the way, that they created, going all the way back to the year 2000. If you remember, Goldman Sachs sold Greece on a package of accounting fraud that set up the whole controlled demolition, as I think of it, from going back to the year 2000. But that's the interest. Greece is being caught up in a power struggle between the European Central Bank and the Federal Reserve Bank in Washington and the Bank of England in the UK.
Now, what do you see happening during the next month?
Well, what will happen is every time the government of Greece tries to assert its independence, the speculators will come in and they will hammer the Greek bonds. In other words, this is financial terrorism. They put a gun to the head using the financial markets and say either you give up your sovereignty. Part of the deal back in 2000 and going forward from 2000 already, Greece has given up its lottery business to Goldman Sachs. It's given up the airport taxes. They've had to trade those away already. So the next thing they're going to have to trade away is probably access to the ports, and any other businesses they're going to have to trade away to stave off, to appease the financial terrorists. And, as I've been saying from the beginning, the Greek people should stand up for their sovereignty and their independence because they're being sold out by their government, and they're going to lose control of all of the income-producing assets that they have.
Now, on Tuesday, April the 13th, Greece is expected to auction a total of 1.2 billion euros of 6- and 12-month T-bills. You don't expect anything positive out of this, do you?
Well, as we've seen, the the ability of the financial vigilantes to take prices to wherever they need to take prices to pressure Greece to do their bidding. So if, in fact, the government of Greece would come out with a statement saying, okay, we give up, we're transferring all of our sovereigns to the IMF, then the auction will go well. If the Greek government says, wait a minute, we want to be independent, we don't want to be ruled by the IMF, then the auction will go poorly. The prices of the auction have nothing to do with market forces. The prices at the auction are 100% contingent on political forces. This is not a free market. This is a political market being controlled by political operatives who are using markets to impose an economic and political dictatorship.
On your site, maxkaiser.com, I saw something about a no-pay movement. What is this all about?
Well, the no-pay movement, and this was an excellent article by Matt Taibbi in the Rolling Stone magazine, all over the world people are realizing that the debts that they're being asked to pay were fraudulently constructed to begin with. So you've got, for example, mortgage holders in America who are refusing to pay their mortgage debt because they realize that the mortgages were fraudulently conceived to begin with. You have Iceland that's telling the bankers in the Netherlands and the UK, we're not going to pay for your banking mistakes. The people in Greece obviously are toying with the idea of possibly telling the bankers to, we're not going to pay for your mistakes, because the Greek people didn't do anything wrong here. The bankers took a risk, and their risk blew up in their face, so the bankers have to take the loss, not the Greek people. Imposing austerity measures on Greek people so that bankers on Wall Street get Christmas bonuses doesn't make any sense for the Greek people. The no-pay movement is also extended wherever you see this banking crisis unfold in various countries around the world. You know, we saw it really quite effective back in Bolivia when a few years back when Bechtel tried to come into the country and control all the water rights. And suddenly the people in Bolivia, they had to spend 50 or 60% of their monthly income on water. They pushed back, and this led to the election of Evo Morales. So I think the Greek people need to look to that as an example and ask themselves, do we need a new government? If our government can't stand up to the IMF, do we need a new government? We don't want to give 50 or 60% of our income for water, for basic services as part of the austerity package from the IMF. For what? We didn't do anything. So they really have to ask themselves whether or not this government is representing them in the way that they need to be represented. If not, they need to take some action. They need to do it pretty quickly, because the longer you let the Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, IMF, Wall Street bankers, City of London bankers run your economy, the harder it is to get rid of them. You know, it's like a bad rash.